Welcome to Corvette Today, the show that talks about everything Corvette, with your host, Steve Garrett, lifetime member of the National Corvette Museum, president of the Corvette Club of Kansas City, Missouri, and radio disc jockey at the #1 radio station in Kansas City for over 45 years. Here's Steve Garrett.
Thanks for listening and watching Corvette Today, the show that talks about everything Corvette, and the only current podcast dedicated to Corvette. I'm your host, Steve Garrett. I appreciate you tuning in. Corvette Today is brought to you by Wheelcraft. Want to dress up your Corvette with bright chrome or black chrome wheels? Visit wheelcraft.com and learn about their advanced PVD chrome finishing. They can refinish your wheels or offer a wheel exchange for most models, and it comes with a 5-year warranty. Visit wheelcraft.com today or call them at 833-840-5334. You can listen to Corvette Today on all podcast platforms. You can also listen on your smart device. Just say, "Hey Google," or "Alexa, play the podcast called Corvette Today," and you're connected. And be sure to visit the Corvette Today website. It's CorvetteToday.com. You can access everything there, including the Corvette Today merchandise store. You can also join our Corvette Today Facebook group there as well. Also, make sure you sign up for the Corvette Today emails, notifications, and updates at CorvetteToday.ck.page. And if you like YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our Corvette Today YouTube channel. See all Corvette Today episodes on YouTube as well. And be sure to patronize our flagship sponsors of Corvette Today, MidEngineCorvetteForum.com, the forum that focuses on the new mid-engine C8 Corvette. Meet a lot of fellow Corvette enthusiasts like yourself at MidEngineCorvetteForum.com. Soul Performance Products. Developed and manufactured in the United States, the Soul Performance Products exhaust portfolio has been tailored to elevate the experience of the world's most exciting sports cars, including the latest generation of the Corvette. Soul Performance Products at SOULPP.com, the official performance exhaust of Corvette Today. Aerolarri Wheels, a true forged wheel with over 20 unique styles to choose from for your C8 and wide-body versions of the C7, C6, and C5 Corvette. It's an amazing value, starting at only $23.88 for a set of 4 fully forged wheels. And use the promo code CT111 and get $100 off your purchase. Visit Aerolarri.com. That's AEROLARRI.com. And use the promo code CT111 for your $100 discount. Ciocca Corvettes. If you're a Corvette enthusiast, and I know you are since you're listening and watching Corvette Today, then you need to know about Ciocca Corvette. They're based in Atlantic City, where you can find over 100 new and pre-owned vets on the lot and inbound. Ciocca also ships Corvettes all over the country, custom ordered to your specifications. They're staffed with experienced pros who can answer all your questions. So don't compromise. Visit CioccaCorvette.com. That's CIOCCA Corvette.com and find out more. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. And a shout out to Canadian Corvette Forum and Corvette Forum, welcoming Corvette enthusiasts from around the world. My guests on Corvette Today are the Holy Trinity.
It's quite an intro.
It's quite an intro. Yeah. Josh Holder, Harlan Charles, Tadge Juechter, the Executive Chief Engineer, Brand Manager, and also the Chief Engineer of Corvette. First, before we get going, Tadge has announced his retirement in July. Congratulations, and congratulations are in order. You just got elected to be in the Corvette Hall of Fame, my friend. Congratulations.
It's been a week.
It has been a week.
And the reception here at the Bash in Bowling Green has been unbelievable.
It really has.
Never felt so appreciated.
They love you guys. They absolutely love you guys. Well, as you know, what we do every year when we're at the Bash here at the National Corvette Museum is we poll everybody on Corvette Forum and MidEngineCorvetteForum.com. We get questions. You guys answer the questions from the audience, and that's what we're going to do again this year. Our first question, we have about 20 questions this year, so it's going to be fun. Our first one is from Mid-Engine Corvette Forum. It's Mr. Awesome. I love that name. Isn't that great? He wants to know, can we get a more prominent phone and charger icon or notice on the driver information center? Who's going to take that question?
Well, I know we're... We miss this ourselves. You know, we drive these cars all the time. And,
right.
You know, I'm fairly untrainable, so I was one person constantly walking away from the car with my phone and the charger. And so we went from having no message to a message.
Yes. So that was a step in the right direction.
It was a step in the right direction. Yes, it's possible to still miss that as you're gathering your things, getting out of the car. So I think it's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure what, we only have a limited amount of display space, and we could have a voice come over saying, "Idiot, you left your phone in the charger."
It's an option, right?
I don't know if that's what this person is getting for, but it's right there on the instrument cluster. But you do have to look for it.
Yeah. But this was one of those things I think is a positive story because we heard that, we experienced it ourselves, and we heard that from a lot of customers. And this was one of those things where, because of the electrical arc, we were able to update cars people already had.
So it would be a software update. Maybe.
We were able to do that from software. We added that phone and charger message to people who already had their cars, and a lot of people really thought that was very thoughtful the way that we added that in.
That's really good.
So he was asking, could we get a notice on the DIC? And that came out with that update that Harlan's talking about. So Mr. Awesome and anyone else out there that's not seeing that should check for the latest software updates that would come over the air, and they would get that improvement. It comes with a chime and a notice on the DIC. If you're not paying attention, you can still forget, but it's better than nothing.
That's perfect. Well, at least you guys have been thinking in this direction anyway, so that's perfect. Our next question is from Corvette Ed from Corvette Forum. He says, are graphics like the Jake's graphics installed at the factory or the dealerships because some dealerships don't have the capability to actually install the graphics?
Well, we do have graphics installed at the factory, and there's, it's a limited what they can do. It has to meet the mass production, whatever.
Sure.
So we do like the racing graphics, the full length, and we do the hood stingers there, and we did the 70th anniversary when we did that at the factory. But then the ones that are a little bit more distinct, maybe lower volume, like the specialty ones, like we had the Stingray R and the Jake ones they're talking about, and the Tech Bronze. Those are like lower production, so we do those as accessories that are dealer installed.
Okay.
That's how we do it.
Some of those dealers don't have the people and the capability to do that, and I think that's what they're worried about.
Right.
Yeah, it is a acquired skill. If you don't do it very often, you can lose that. So if you're worried about your dealer installing those accessory stripes, I'd ask them if they've done them before, or if they might have. If their answer is no, they might have a recommendation for where you could go get them done.
Somewhere else in their city where that can be farmed out right.
Or since we're at the museum, I have to say you could do a museum delivery, they do a great job.
Good option. Very good option. All right, our next question is from midenginecorvetteforum.com. We go back and forth between Corvette Forum and the Mid-Engine Forum. This is from GS2020. He says, talk about the rollout of the E-Ray. Are you happy with progress so far?
So you're looking at me, I can start. I don't know if this is asking about manufacturing acceleration or the rollout of what the car is. We knew, and anytime you introduce a new brand, people are unfamiliar with it. Naturally, with the electrification aspect of it, people were skeptical. They weren't quite sure what we were doing. And so I think we're pretty happy with the customer education part of it, getting people to understand. We've had a lot of third-party media endorsement for the car itself and how it operates. We went through some of that today. And honestly, the messaging has gotten better and better, but we've really realized how difficult it is to penetrate the fog. There's so much inertia out there. Like Josh started his presentation today asking if everybody in the audience knew where the charge port door was to plug it in. And because that's been a common question.
Really?
Where do you plug it in?
Oh my gosh.
And so as many times as we said it, people still are unsure about, okay, what is this thing exactly? So I think it's going to take a critical mass of real customers with real experience being able to report on what they've experienced and how much they like the car, and that will bring the masses in to really understand what it is. So, we're making cars, and just like every other model, whether it was the Stingray or the Z06, you start slow. I talked about it today. All Corvettes have a bunch of boutique, niche, high-tech content in them, and some of the suppliers that make that, sort of by definition, they're not high-volume traditional automotive suppliers.
Right.
And so it takes them a while to get their people up to speed, their processes up to speed. And that's true both internally and externally. We build the battery and the drive unit ourselves, and so we're on an acceleration learning path, which is traditional in all manufacturing. And so would we like to go faster? Sure. We'd love to get people their cars as fast as possible. On the other hand, we want to make sure we do it in a very measured way, keep our quality. Josh talked about our quality and warranty has never been in a better position in all 70 some years of Corvette, and so we want to keep that, and we want to keep people happy with their car after they get it.
Right.
And so we'll do a measured acceleration as we always do, but we work every day really hard on making sure that slope is as steep as it can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to echo that, yeah, the answer is yes, we're happy with it. Both public reception of the car and the way the launch is going. Reinforce for people to have some patience like they had to have with Z06. We promise we'll get you your car. It's cool to have this much demand. I know what it's like to wait for a new Corvette. I myself have waited for a new Corvette. So we understand that we want to get these out as quickly as we can, but we want to be very, very thorough and measured in the launch of, especially a car like the E-Ray, where we're getting into electrification the first time. We want to make sure it's absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think that the really cool thing about the E-Ray, and I think it goes back to what you had talked about, Tadge, when Josh said, where do you plug the thing in? There's no plug-in. And I think people are under a miscommunication that the battery will take you X amount of distance. It's not built for that. It's built for accelerated performance, not distance driving. And I think that's really important.
Yep, performance and all-wheel drive. Taking advantage of the traction. You have the front end, too. And Cody's presentation this morning talked about how that pays dividends in all kinds of driving conditions.
Yeah, we're talking about Cody Buckley, who really kind of headed up all that E-Ray stuff. It was really, really good. All right, let's go to the next question, guys. Question 4 is from Andy Bump at Corvette Forum. And I think we covered this the last time we did this show, you guys. Exactly how does the DCT filter monitor work? We know the first replacement is at 7,500 miles. When is the second change supposed to occur? Would it be at 22,500 miles or 22,500 miles after the first change?
So the second change is at 22,500 miles.
Okay, good.
Then 22,500 miles after that. Something that's caused confusion with the transmission filter replacement, and a bit we did it intentionally. The first covered service interval was going to be at about 7,500 miles. That's when we wanted you to change the trans filter. It also happens to be when the engine oil and filter need replaced.
Gotcha.
We thought, well, that would be convenient for a customer, for most customers, come in, get all that done at once. However, there are customers, I'm one of them, that don't drive their cars very far or very often, so they weren't getting 7,500 miles on the car in a year. So just yesterday, we were able to make it official. We've extended the coverage of the transmission filter for 3 years. So for those that don't put 7,500 miles on their car in the course of a year, they would still be covered. We didn't want people going to the dealer to get a trans filter replaced prematurely because they're trying to get it under the covered service. We want to make sure customers get as close to that 7,500 mile mark when they get the filter changed. And then you do it again, 22,500 miles. Odometer reading.
Okay.
And then 22,500 after that.
Gotcha. Question number 5 is from Sir 5 List on Mid-Engine Corvette Forum. He said, is adaptive cruise control going to be added to Corvette in the future? That's a good question.
And we've had a lot of customers ask that question. Many of the cars they own otherwise have adaptive cruise. Many of us on the team don't use it, in part because it has to be conservatively calibrated. So in city traffic, if you drive around other people, you'll find yourself quite far behind a car in front of you. And that means other people can just cut in front of you. And when that happens, the adaptive cruise adapts and keeps that gap so you go backwards.
Right.
But other people come in. And so we had a choice when we were putting this car together. You had to go either adaptive or non-adaptive. And based on our polling of drivers, we thought most people would probably would rather not be forced into the adaptive technology because it is kind of a nanny telling you how to drive. Since then, times have changed, and it's become more commonplace to have a system where it can be turned on or to off.
Right.
So that opens a new chapter on the discussion. Now, it's not a trivial to package the sensors and do everything you want to do on the front end of it, which is our front end is low and pointy. There's not a lot of place. We've got a lot of cooling area. There's not a lot of place to put sensors in. And so it means a bit of a tear up, but we're looking at some maybe non-traditional ways that we could get some kind of functionality like that. I can't promise it, but we hear the customer ask, and we'll see if we can accommodate it at some point.
And Harlan, we've got some new electronics coming in for 2025 too. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
24.
There's some new features.
2024.
24.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. We have basically, we've added, the emergency braking, the lane change alert. The one I really like is the high beam assist. Where the IntelliBeam, where it tells you if you're especially driving around here in Kentucky, you get on these small roads where it automatically puts your high beams on and takes them off when you need to.
Sure.
And we were talking we talked about the adaptive cruise too. We're like, this is a Corvette. Who's going to be following? You have to follow somebody.
Yeah.
What Corvette driver really follows somebody? But we do get this question a lot. And now that we have the lanes, I always thought, I was a pretty good driver. And we have all these things on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like not in my lane. I'm following too close. Everything's going off. But I think the way we're trying to do it is, like we talked about, is people can, if they want to use them, they're there. It's an extra level, and I think once people get comfortable with them, they like them, but we still want to keep it a driver's car so things are defeatable, and we never want to be annoying, whatever we do.
Yeah. You can turn all that off if you want.
Exactly.
Which is great. All right, our final question in segment 1, guys, comes from Bob McLean, and I think we've covered this before, but it's just worth covering again. What's included in the ZER package besides summer tires?
So basically, I think we're a little guilty of confusing people, because actually, even through the development, we figured out that the E-Ray was so robust, we could go to the all-season tires or the PS4S, performance summer tires without having to do different calibrations on the chassis.
Right.
So we have actually, people study RPO codes and everything. So it does come with a different RPO code, and originally it was supposed to be a different chassis. So people are wondering what's really the difference, but ultimately what ended up happening, we could use the same calibrations for both tires. So the short answer is it's tires.
It's tires. That's
it is tires. And this is rare because tires work in conjunction with all the rest of the chassis.
Right.
We had this new all-season tire that was specifically engineered for this application. It's a work of art. If you listen to the technology behind it, it's amazing. And so we were actually able to do stuff with that to bring it closer to a PS4S summer tire, such that the calibrations could be the same, which is great because a lot of people and we can't advise them to throw all seasons or throw winter tires on the car, because we say, well, the car wasn't engineered or tuned for that, so we can't recommend that. But people really like to have that ability. In this case, you can go back and forth between a summer tire and an all-season tire if you want on the E-Ray.
That's perfect. Well, guys, let's take our first break. When we come back, we've got more questions from Mid-Engine Corvette Forum and Corvette Forum with Josh Holder, the Chief Engineer, Harlan Charles, the Brand Manager, and Tadge Juechter, the Executive Chief Engineer, back on Corvette Today.
We all know that wheels make the car. Wheelcraft's PVD chrome finish in bright chrome or black chrome will take your Corvette to new levels. And it comes with a 5-year warranty. Durability is a defining feature of the Wheelcraft finish. Their PVD chrome is superior to traditional chrome, with a finish that is brake dust resistant and cleans effortlessly with soap and water. Wheelcraft offers factory wheel exchange for select C4 through C8 models, or they can apply the PVD finish to your current wheels. No matter what generation you own, Wheelcraft will transform the look of your Corvette. With every Corvette comes a unique story, and Wheelcraft has embraced this idea. When you purchase your new set of wheels, you receive a lifetime membership to the Wheelcraft Pit Crew, granting you access to your own page on Wheelcraft's website, where you can post pictures and tell your Corvette story. Visit our website at wheelcraft.com or call 833-639-4231. Arrive in style with Wheelcraft.
The National Corvette Restorer Society is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. 50 years of affirming and promoting the preservation and restoration of the Corvette. 50 years as the foremost Corvette collector car organization for building value with its prestigious awards. Have you ever considered joining NCRS? Over 70,000 people have. We're so much more than just the nuts and bolts. The NCRS flight judging program can and often does increase the value of America's sports car by researching and publishing the leading reading tech manuals and judging guides for the 1953 through 2007 Corvettes by training the best judges and by hosting local, regional, and national judging events. And when you join, you'll get award-winning magazines like Corvette Restore and Driveline all throughout the year. Joining is simple and easy. Just go to ncrs.org and sign up. There are NCRS chapters all throughout the U.S. and all around the world. Chances are there's a local chapter near you. So join NCRS today at ncrs.org. We come for the Corvettes. We stay for the friendships made along the way.
When you want to buy a Corvette, or any Chevrolet for that matter, get yours from Hendrick Chevrolet Shawnee Mission, located in Kansas City. Hendrick Chevrolet is the largest Corvette dealership and showroom in the Midwest. With a knowledgeable sales staff and Corvette sales specialists on hand, they'll help you build the Corvette of your dreams, and they ship nationwide. With Corvette certified master mechanics on site and a huge parts department with over 24,000 parts and $2 million in inventory, Hendrick Chevrolet is well equipped to take care of your every need. From sales to service to collision repair, Hendrick Chevrolet has you covered. Visit ChevyUSA.com or call 913-384-1550.
The Radiator Grill Store offers C8 Corvette A-pillar wind diffusers in beautiful carbon fiber or OEM gloss black that help reduce wind buffeting when a window is open. Easy installation and OEM fitment. Plus, get 10% off your total purchase with the promo code CT10 at RadiatorGrillStore.com.
And now, back to Corvette Today with your host and my husband, Steve Garrett.
Thanks for checking out Corvette Today on podcast and YouTube. It's the only current podcast dedicated to Corvette. Corvette Today is brought to you by Wheelcraft. You want your Corvette looking its best, don't you? Well, dress it up with bright chrome or black chrome wheels. Visit wheelcraft.com and learn about their advanced PVD chrome finishing. They can refinish your wheels or do a wheel exchange, and you get a 5-year warranty. So visit wheelcraft.com today or give them a call, 833-639-4231. I'm your host, Steve Garrett. With me is Executive Chief Engineer Tadge Juechter, also Harlan Charles, Brand Manager, and the Chief Engineer for Corvette, Josh Holder. In the second segment, we're taking more questions from Mid-Engine Corvette Forum and Corvette Forum. In our second segment, we're going to talk with Mr. Mid-Engine Corvette Forum, John Elegant. John wants to know, on this year's Car and Driver Lightning Lap test at the Virginia International Raceway, the Z06 was faster than the E-Ray. Now, we know you test models on different tracks. Where was the E-Ray tested and found to be faster on one lap than the Z06?
The Z06 is the ultimate track Corvette.
Yes.
That was its mission.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. The E-Ray does all things well. We talked about its all-weather capability, what a great grand touring car it is. If you want a track car, the Z06 is your Corvette. So the E-Ray is not generally quicker than a Z06
Right.
on a track. There are some shorter tracks where it can hold its own.
Drag strip
on
track.
a drag strip,
Right.
it's certainly at least 8th mile is going to outpace the Z06. But the Z06 is the ultimate track weapon, and so it's actually going exactly according to plan. Our mission to set out for both the Z06 and the E-Ray have been achieved, and the Z06 performance on track is where it really shines.
Right. I saw where somebody did a 0 to 60 in 2.2 in an E-Ray.
When they hook up, they
go.
They can really go.
When you lay it down, you lay it down, right?
I mean, we try to do times that we know that when the media gets it, and that'll be good time, but that a lot of people can achieve. But if somebody beats it, that's great.
Great.
And I would say, we don't sandbag any of our models. It's not like we pulled the E-Ray back so the Z06 could be the champ. We made that car as pure a track machine as we knew how to do. We made the E-Ray as fast as we knew how to make it. It doesn't have as good power to weight ratio. It claws its way out of corners like nobody's business.
Right.
But once you get to the straights at speed, the Z06 pulls away. So, and it comes with cup tires. You can get it with cup tires. So
exactly.
That's a huge step.
It is. That's a big advantage for sure. Our next question is from Andy Bump from Corvette Forum. He says, what does the hydraulic system flush do, and should it be done every time the DCT external canister is replaced? That's a good technical question.
It is, so I'll take a start at it. The hydraulic system flush does kind of the way it's described. It forces transmission fluid through the fine filter, the filter that you replace. So at a dealership, they can hook up the dealer service tool to the car and run a routine that will tell the trans control module to do this fluid filter flush.
Okay.
And because the car is already hoisted on a rack, the technician's already got the panels off, there's some other work he's doing. This kind of happens in parallel in the background.
Okay.
So we're doing it at a dealer visit because we can, and we can take the last bit of whatever contamination might be in that oil and get it into the filter before the technician replaces it. Do-it-yourselfers have become nervous that, hey, now I can't do it myself. I don't have a service tool. I can't force this routine. You don't have to do the routine. Like I said, we do it because we can. But the fine filtering routine happens through normal driving anyway. In fact, when you're driving steady state, like say down the highway,
right,
we run a routine in the transmission that will force more of that fluid through the fine filter. So normal driving is doing this. If you are a do-it-yourselfer, you don't want anyone else touching your car, you can change the trans filter without running this routine.
Okay, that sounds good.
And I noticed Andy Bump asked a transmission filter question in the last segment, so I think he should come and apply to be a technician.
He should.
In one of our dealerships to help work on the DCT.
I think he's trying to get a job. Don't you
He's asking good questions.
He is. He's not the only one that have asked it.
That's true. Our next question is from Lost Soul from Mid-Engine Corvette Forum. He says, can you lower the stealth mode ambient temperature limit down to 30 or 40 degrees to make it usable in the mornings or even in warmer states?
We would love to, and we may. I would say, we drive these cars year-round, and we were talking about how great it is to have stealth mode and be able to crawl out of your neighborhood quietly and not annoy the neighbors. And in Michigan, it's like the majority of the year, where if you're parking outside, you can't use stealth mode because of the temperature. Now, GM has a lot of requirements about the functionality of the car. And we expect in any driving mode like this, you to meet all those requirements. So it's a fine balance of how well does the car perform, what are the customer's expectations going to be in a stealth mode. It's amazing how much stuff is like fully functional. It's just driving a regular car. It's like the engine started.
Yeah.
Almost everything works, but not everything works because just the front E-axle, you're not generating in heat in the back. There's things that the car uses to its advantage in different environmental situations, especially cold weather. And so we're looking at, a bunch of us would love to drop that temperature. And so we're kind of in the middle of reassessing that balance of performance.
Okay.
And if there's a way to drop it some, we will, because we'd all love it.
Great.
And there is, I just want to address one thing. I'm reading some of the, I read all the forums, both of these great forums, and there's some misconception too, where some people thought, oh, it's the batteries don't like the cold. It has nothing to do with that. It's more about your comfort, the frosting, the windshield, and things like that is why we set the temperature where it was. It has nothing to do with the batteries, and the e-all-wheel drive works at all temperature. It has nothing to do with that at all.
Okay.
I just want to clear the shuttle mode, you can use the shuttle mode at any temperature.
Any temperature.
Yeah.
So it's not the batteries. The batteries will work.
Gotcha. Okay, good. All right, our next question is from 23C8Z. He's from Corvette Forum. He says, does manual mode cause any more wear to the transmission than leaving it in drive mode?
No. If it did, Carlin would be braking cars left and right because that's the only way he drives.
He's never driven in drive, I don't think.
I like driving in manual mode.
I drive in manual all the time, so I'd be the poster child for that.
To the transmission, it's no different. No. You're electronically commanding a gear state change. It does its business. Whether it does it on its own command or on your command, it does the same work.
Yep. In some ways, that might be less shifting than the car would do on its own.
Depending on how you drive it.
Depending on how you drive it.
Yeah.
I probably don't.
I love shifting. I put it in manual mode. If I'm not in manual mode, I still do paddle shifting, and I'm up and down, up and down. It's so
Harlan
much fun.
just leaves it in third gear, down the highway, whatever.
You can go.
We don't recommend that, actually.
You can do almost everything.
Light load and high RPM is not recommended. So the clean answer to that is no.
Okay.
It is definitely
doesn't hurt
not.
it.
And then the other answer is don't drive like Harlan.
If it makes you happy.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question is from 11Z Senator from Mid-Engine Corvette Forum. He says, can an Australian participate in an R8C delivery and go to Spring Mountain? That's a good question.
So I'll just start. Anybody can go to Spring Mountain. I mean, they'll open it up if you're willing to fly to Las Vegas. You can sign up and go to Spring Mountain. The museum delivery gets tricky because it has to do with whatever laws in their country, and licensing the car and driving it out of state. So we haven't even been able to, even the Canadian law, because to be honest, a lot of people want to do it from Canada, and we haven't been able to work that out even for Canadians. So it gets into that. It's not that we of course we'd love to have everybody, and maybe we'll work it out someday. We talked about in Europe they have like a tourist thing where you go the other way, like people buying German cars can drive it and then get it set back. That would be great. That would be like a dream thing if we could do that someday.
I've heard where people buy BMWs, they go over there, they take their car delivery, they drive around, they send it back to BMW, and they ship it to the United States.
Yeah, that would be
cool.
Program. That would be cool if that's what they're getting at someday for an Australian or somebody from Germany or Europe. Yeah. We could drive around this beautiful country, our beautiful country, and then.
Yeah. We don't have that loophole. I mean, the museum is effectively a delivery dealer.
Right.
And we have to abide by all of the laws in place in the country where it's delivered.
Yeah,
and so a car with a steering wheel on the wrong side would be a foul. For sure.
We have
Australia would be
I shouldn't say the wrong side.
The other side.
The other side. We love the Australians.
Yeah, we had that question this afternoon in your session. Can you buy a right-hand drive and keep it in the United States? And the answer is...
Absolutely not.
There you go.
Why anybody would want? It was from an American who just wanted to be different.
They want the novelty.
Different? Yeah.
I think he saw that Corvette Summer movie. If you guys remember that.
Yeah.
Where they had the right-hand drive Corvette.
And if they saw the Barbie movie, they saw a C1 with a back seat.
Right.
Who put a back seat in a C1?
We weren't consulted on that.
I obviously can tell. All right, our next question is from Chevy Chad from Corvette Forum. He said, we would love to have the option for blue brake calipers. Can that be added?
Well, we can
tell me about it. I just bought a blue car. Why couldn't I get blue calipers, Harlan?
Getting some requests for that. Idea. Maybe that's something we should look at. We'll get back to work.
I mean,
we'll get right on it.
Chevy Chad and Tadge want it. Maybe we should look at it. Right?
Couldn't get it.
We did have them previously, so yeah, that's a good.
Not unprecedented.
That's a good suggestion.
There we go. All right, our final question in segment 2 is from Even ZR1 from Corvette Forum. He said, this is a great question. Will the 70th anniversary microfiber interior be offered again? I love mine in my 2023 70th anniversary white pearl metallic coupe. I think we should just keep it for those cars.
Well, there's always that balance, isn't there?
Right.
So that's basically the answer. So the 70th anniversary interior was special just for that 70th anniversary model, but there is a possibility, the suede. A lot of people like more suede intensive interior, so that's something we could do in the future on a new interior, perhaps.
It's pretty classy looking. I love mine. Everybody that gets in and goes, wow, and they feel that interior, the dash and the doors, they're really impressed. They love it.
But that's a perfect example of where we can't please everybody. People want this, so we could make the person happy who wants to order that in their 24 and make everybody who's got a 23 angry. Wait a second, I thought this was going to be special for me. Right. Now you've just hurt my resale. You've hurt the specialness of my car. So we're always struggling with that balance.
Even ZR1 from Corvette Forum is going to have to go find a 70th anniversary 2023 Stingray or ZR1 or Z06. There you go. All right, guys, our final break's coming up. In our third segment, we'll take 6 more questions coming up with Tadge, Josh, and Harlan here on Corvette Today.
Are you ready for a better insurance policy without the Corvette tax? With Agreed Value Protection, the value of your collector vehicle will never change. Plus, you'll save money. Get a quick quote at ncminsurance.com.
Hey, honey, are you awake?
I am now.
I can't sleep. Since turning 50, I keep dreaming of a red door and a blue door, somehow knowing there are only choices for retirement.
Okay.
Through the red door, we outlive our money. We have to rely on our kids. We're stuck on a fixed income. It's terrifying.
Yeah, that would suck.
But through the blue door, our money outlives us. We retire on our terms. Our kids stay our kids, not our caretakers. We make work optional.
Yes, that's much better. That's what I want too. But what do we do?
We call True Wealth & Company at 913-653-8783. They specialize in helping successful people make work optional. They're our fiduciary Blue Door personal wealth managers.
Hey, where are you going? It's 3 a.m.
I can't sleep. I'm going to check out True Wealth & Company online at
with True.com. That blue door is going to be our retirement.
913-653-8783. Visit us online at retirewithtrue.com. Investment advice offered through True Wealth and Company, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Kansas.
VetFinders.com is the Internet's original Corvette classified ads website, with classified ads starting at just $25. And every ad runs until your Corvette is sold. If you're in the market for a Corvette, VetFinders.com has over 500 Corvettes for sale from all around the USA and Canada and covering all 8 generations. Visit VetFinders.com, the Internet's destination for buying and selling Corvettes. That's VETTE Finders.com.
You're enjoying the only current podcast on Corvettes, Corvette Today.
Thanks once again for listening and watching Corvette Today, the show that talks about everything Corvette. Corvette Today is brought to you by Wheelcraft. You want your Corvette looking its best? We'll dress it up with bright chrome or black chrome wheels. Visit wheelcraft.com and learn about their advanced PVD chrome finishing. They can refinish your wheels or do a wheel exchange, and you get a 5-year warranty too. So visit wheelcraft.com today or give them a call, 833-639-4231. I'm your host, Steve Garrett. With me is the Holy Trinity of Corvette. It's Josh Holder, Tadge Juechter, and Harlan Charles. Our final segment here starts with Red C8Z06. He's from MidEngineCorvetteForum.com. His question is, does the E-Ray come with 2 coolant tanks, one in the front and one in the rear? What does each one do, and what coolant do they use, and why are they not customer serviceable?
So it does come with 2 coolant tanks just for the E-Ray.
Okay.
The one in the front is part of a system that cools what we call the power electronics. So that's the inverter. We talked about the massive amount of power that the battery can both regenerate and dispense to the electric motor. That power generates heat, and the power electronics manages that current, and so they see a lot of heat. We cool that with a glycol and deionized water mixture.
Wow.
Which is why we put a tamper-proof cap on it. So I'm trying to answer all his questions at once. We just didn't want anyone inadvertently putting tap water in it. You can get the cap off. It's more of a, hey, read your owner's manual before you... But the reality is you should never need to open that or service it. It's not something you have to regularly service.
Good.
That heat is exchanged through a radiator in the front of the car that helps cool that system off. At the rear, same deionized glycol mixture goes through a chiller. We call it a chiller. It's a liquid-to-liquid heat exchanger that transfers thermal energy from the battery cells themselves with refrigerant, the same refrigerant that's used in the AC system. And a battery pack, you don't want it to be too cool or too hot, like around 100 degrees in our case. 100 degrees Fahrenheit is about where we like to keep it. So our strategy is let the battery get up to temp when it's powering the vehicle or regenerating. When it does, we like to clamp that temperature as quickly as we can, which is why we use a refrigerant and a chiller to exchange that thermal energy.
Gotcha. Our second question is from Turbo Tuner from Corvette Forum. He says, please go through the RPM and slip percentage control in launch control settings.
So I can do a start. Josh will probably add. So, we have a really good traction control sort of default launch control calibration. And a lot of people think of tracks as either slippery or sticky. There's actually way more variables than that. There's the static coefficient of friction. So how much traction can the tire get when it's not slipping? And then once it starts to slip, that coefficient of friction changes. And it can change at different rates. It can change as a function of temperature. It can change as a function of how fast the wheels are spinning. So there's all these different variables that go into the quality of the launch. And so since we can't predict every track in the world, the temperature, humidity, how much sun load's been on the track, what's the tire compound that's been laid down on the track, there's all these different things that would be impossible to predict. So that's why we put this feature in where people can determine how much inertial energy, spin up the motor, that when you dump the clutches to try to optimize the amount of energy to take advantage of the available traction, both that static and the dynamic friction. So that's why it's there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the idea behind the 2 variables you can adjust, slip percentage is just like it sounds. It's how much the tires are spinning before traction control starts to intervene. And then engine speed, RPM, is really where we're managing torque. So we're allowing the customer to tailor how much torque delivery during the launch. And like Tadge said, it's really meant for customers to play with on varying friction surfaces. So you might be in the Southwest where there's particularly a lot of sand or something on the road. You might want to play with it there. Its real mission was drag strip type launches. People think, oh, I'm going to a drag strip. I've got this rubber covered surface. The car's going to hook up like crazy. If you have drag slicks, yes.
Right.
On radial street tires, especially cold ones, it's awful. So that's where that comes in really handy. But the honest truth is it's just juvenile fun to play with, to see what each one does and what it does to your launch. And so we did it so customers could play with it, and that's exactly what we want them to do.
That's great.
Almost everybody thinks they can outwit the computers.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So we give them some knobs to turn and see if they can do it.
They'll
Give you something to play with.
Give
right?
you some humility.
There you go. Our next question is from Away in the Sky from Mid-Engine Corvette Forum. He says, throughout the design of the C8 and the development, what's been your greatest challenge and your greatest accomplishment? Each guy.
The biggest challenge we had was doing a mid-engine architecture right on our first try.
Yeah.
Years, we had 7 generations of front-engine car. We had it pretty dialed in. We knew it was important. We knew a lot about, and I'll pick thermal management as an example. What we didn't know on a mid-engine car is, okay, we got an engine in the back, so there's no natural airflow through the engine compartment. In a front-engine car, you've got all the heat exchangers, and then that heat downstream of that, or the air downstream of that, it's warmed up a little bit, but it's way cooler than an exhaust manifold.
Right.
And so you have natural evacuation that's why you have the gills on the side of the fenders.
Yep.
So through there, out the bottom of the car. Now we don't have that. Now you got people sitting in the way. And so that's why we had to figure out how to get airflow to the back without turning the whole back end of the car into a parachute.
Yeah.
We need to get ventilation through there, but capturing air through big side openings and not having that turn into a bunch of high pressure inside the back of the engine compartment, which slows you down, that's drag.
Right.
And then how do you manage there was almost an infinite number of ways that you could configure heat exchangers. We were just talking about the complexity of just cooling off the battery and the power electronics. Now you throw everything else in, trans fluid, engine oil. You like to be comfortable with your AC. You've got this myriad of different needs for cooling air. How do you distribute it in an optimal way? How do you do all the plumbing? Where do you package all this stuff? And it's not like we had cars running around to tell us, or we could just plug and play all this stuff. We had to synthesize. We had to do computer models to generate all the alternatives and what are the pluses and minuses for all these things. And as you can see, we've had the car out for quite a long time now.
5 years.
Air conditioning, no complaints. Track performance, never overheats. Thing's bulletproof. We've done quite an amazing job and kept the traditional efficiency. What people like about Corvettes is you buy a Stingray, still get 30 miles a gallon on the highway. Drag is low. It's a privilege, and it's been amazing to work with the whole team putting this plan together and getting it right, especially when we have to compete against all of our other mid-engine competitors. They've done many, many generations.
Right.
They've got the tribal knowledge of how to do things right, how to do things wrong. We had to grow that internally.
Yeah, absolutely. Harlan?
So I'm going to talk a little bigger scale. I think the greatest accomplishment is going to sound different. Of course, we're so proud of the Z06, the E-Ray, Z01 is coming. I'm actually most proud of the accomplishment with the Stingray, because this was a car I believe that we're the only ones in the world that could do, where we took the attainable Corvette formula and made it an exotic mid-engine sports car with all the attributes and benefits that come with that. But so the biggest challenge was, so we're working with, all the engineers, finally, we get to do mid-engine, we're going to make this thing, they're thinking of the Z01, they're thinking of the Z06, and I go, but we got to have this thing's got to be a daily driver, we got to have trunk space. So to maintain the Corvette formula, all the things people love about Corvette, above all, in terms of attainability, is it's a car you can go on road trips, couple can go for long distances, and we started everything with being ensured we wanted a front storage and a rear storage. So we got to the point, we're sitting in all these meetings. We said, we're going to make the carry-on bag an engineering volume surface. You cannot interfere with this. And the same thing in the rear. We're going to have the 2 plus the golf clubs.
Right.
You know, it has to hold that. And we got to the point like...
And the roof has to fit in, too.
And the roof has to fit in. So we'd be in these meetings that start like 6:30 in the morning and it'd go like all day. I used to call it, we're just stewing in orange juices for like 10 hours in this conference room. And we go, and every time somebody would come with something, nope, it's going into the... You know, I had to be there, sit there. You know, we're all there, like, no, you can't put that in there. There's a hose going through it. No, you can't do that. So it's just like the challenge of everybody realizing, I know this is the high performance sports, and that's what's different than, you know, if it's a Ferrari or Porsche, they don't care. You know, they're just going to do what they do. It's a toy. Where ours is really a car that you can enjoy and drive. So that's, I think, our challenge and what I'm proud of.
Yeah, Josh.
I think I'd build on what they said. And I'll bet if, like I said, you could do a whole show on this, we could all just go on for hours about this. Mine's also Stingray related. Everything we're talking about applies to all Corvettes in the 8th generation platform. But the design synergy between the coupe and the convertible happening simultaneously.
Right.
And how one change affected another. We have to stow the roof in the coupe in the trunk that Harlan and all of us were fighting so hard to keep that utility. In the convertible, we have to store this retractable hardtop between the rear wheels, which sets the width of the car. The opening of the roof sets the depth of the trunk and length of the car. 1 little millimeter affects all others.
Right.
So we're continuously going in these loops, and I think people would be shocked about the heated debate over literally millimeters about what the right decision was, and to have our, you know, the talent in our studio doing these 2 cars together, being able to do the thermal management Tadge was talking about with a trunk that gives all this utility yet blocking airflow. It would have been so easy to cool the engine compartment without that trunk there to get the air out of the car. And then things like the design of the transmission, the front face of the transmission case to the output shafts of the axle is super, super short. And that dimension sets up the length of the whole car. We knew we were doing a small block V8. The bore centers have been around since 1955. We're going to change that formula. It's got to go behind the occupant compartment. We want to get an average tall height driver into the car. So the whole length underneath is competing with all this length above, all at the same time. And another thing about the transmission, the input shaft is below the output shafts. And that might, so what? Well, it allowed us to lower the engine. The crankshaft and the input shaft of the trans are on the same axis. So that whole center of gravity is now lower and rearward in the car.
Wow.
And it made one thing I know we're all proud of, and that's the driving experience. We were, the first time we got in the car out in what we call the challenge course, just a cone course out on Black Lake, it was about 80% calibration-ish. The car wasn't quite done yet, but we were all taking turns in the car and got out just giggling. And when grown adults are giggling, you don't really need comments. You know we've achieved what we tried to achieve.
Absolutely right. Tell me in essence, when did you guys really start working on the mid-engine car? What year?
05.
Really? So that was...
that's in
C5.
principle.
Well, not this iteration. We actually had a previous iteration. So like when you were talking about before about our first try, in a weird way, this was kind of our second. It almost like the first generation was really the second generation, because we had kind of a round before this.
Wow.
We had started one.
Yeah.
But the 2005 is when Harlan and I did our very first presentations asking leadership to let us study it. So it's not like we're drawing lines on a mid-engine car. It's like, can we even ask for resources? Wow. Bob Lussa one time said anybody caught working on a mid-engine car is going to be fired.
Wow.
In the face of that, we're still doing presentations advocating for it. Mm-hmm. And so, that's why it took a really long time, and we did get a false start. After that, we did a bunch of presentations, convinced them, maybe it's worth studying. And we convinced them it's probably a good idea. We're probably going to have to do it. And we started it, and then we stopped.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Heading into bankruptcy, it was just no way we're going to do it. So they stopped us in our tracks.
Because the C7 was supposed to be the mid-engine generation.
It was supposed to be.
And it was pushed back.
Yeah. We were working on it.
But that first one, though, cemented, I think, in leadership's mind that eventually we were going to go there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good. All right. Our next question is from Even ZR1 from Corvette Forum. He says, can we get a software update to hide soft buttons on the interface so that Android Auto and Apple CarPlay can be full screen?
Who's the unfortunate person who's going to answer this one? I think the answer is no.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. We agree with the sentiment here, is why we're chuckling. We understand the question. In our infotainment system that allows phone projection, we keep what we call persistent virtual controls. The idea is that you can project your phone, which we know a lot of people do. We all do it.
Sure.
That you can switch back between your phone and native applications like the E-Ray app we were talking about earlier today. That's super engaging and entertaining and fun to look at. And having that layout that way allows you to switch between your phone projection and an application like that. At the same time, projection developers like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay also have menu buttons that are persistent and virtual. So within the projection application, you can switch back and forth. And when you stack all those buttons that are persistent up, the display, whether it's song title, album art, or navigation, shrinks to make room for all those persistent virtual. So it'd be nice maybe for it to take over, and maybe you, as you approach, those virtuals would pop up. We don't control how they project the phone, it's up to them. We can't tell them how to do that. We chose to keep these persistent displays within our native system so you can go back and forth between them.
And that was really a reaction to customer input. We send customer surveys out, and this is not just Corvette, this is company-wide infotainment resources. And so you ask a customer, would you like XYZ to be persistent so you have instant one-touch access to it? They'll say yes. The question's never asked, are you willing to sacrifice the rest of the screen shrinking down to do that? They'll say, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So we have these surveys that say this is what customers want, and so that balance is a tough one to strike.
The time and temperature, too, was on there.
Yeah.
They wanted that, people wanted that persistent, so that takes up some room,
That's
too.
a tough one. That's a real tough one.
Especially for us, because we have a very compressed interior compartment, so lots of cars have bigger screens, and you sit way up high, much higher roof. We just can't do that. If we put screens from some of our trucks, and you wouldn't be able to see the road, it'd be way up here. So
interesting. Yeah, definitely. All right, our next question is from Mid-Engine Corvette Forum. It's Meyer Webb. He says, when you're stopped in either drive or manual mode with your foot on the brake, are the clutch discs dragging to allow the car to creep, or do they engage when you take your foot off the brake pedal?
Yes and yes.
Okay. Next question.
So the clutch engagement is controlled by hydraulic pressure. We can apply pressure to the clutches, which is how much friction they're applying and how much torque is being used to creep the car forward. And that's a function of brake pedal pressure. It's not just on-off, because that would make a very clunky and awkward driving experience. So the more firm you are on the brake pedal, the less clutch pressure we're applying.
Okay.
As you back off the brake pedal, we'll start applying more clutch pressure. So the car is ready to move like a torque converter, automatic transmission, even though this is completely different. So it operates the way people would expect in automatic drive mode.
Yeah, it's a modern miracle that you can use friction clutches and have a driveway as smooth as it is. You think about you trying to do a traditional manual dry clutch and engage it and so smooth that it feels like a torque converter.
Yeah.
And we were paranoid and skeptical about being able to do that.
Well, that's really cool, though. All right, our final question, guys, is from C. Waddell. He's from Corvette Forum. He said, what considerations were made for combining a stop-start system with stealth mode and a selectable economy mode? It seems like that would be beneficial for fuel mileage to get the car to move in stealth mode or after a stop-start.
This is where life gets complicated.
Yes. That's an engaging question, isn't it?
It's a good question because it's something I think we all
intuitive if you've been
like to do.
Other hybrid vehicles. This is a unique hybrid in the world. The way it operates is completely unique, and so we still have to live within the rules that are defined for emissions for all kinds of other cars. And so there's some real technical challenges with that. And we're very, very conservative when it comes to meeting emissions. Other people walk right up to the edge. General Motors in its entire history, we are very conservative that way. We make sure that cars new are way headroom to all the regulations, and even old cars have headroom to the regulations. And so we live within a constrained environment. on what we can do executing the system. So we've tried to do the best we can with the hardware we have, but it's a really good question. A lot of us are trying to see in the future, could we be more aggressive in this direction? So we think it's a really good question that we're studying for some point in the future.
We'll take this question as a vote to implement something like this. One thing Tadge was getting at, cold start emissions, and I don't mean cold temperatures. I mean the hardware, the catalyst.
Right.
Is not hot enough to effectively do its job as an emission device. So there's very stringent rules around cold startups. And within a drive cycle, you get one cold start. So in a stop-start situation, if anyone's been in any car for long enough, you'll notice if you sit there long enough, even though you didn't move, the engine will start. That's because it's detecting that the catalyst is starting to cool off. So it's things like that that have to be integrated into when we could deliver stealth mode. And a customer could be in a situation where they'd be like, hey, I didn't do anything that should exit me out of stealth mode. The engine just started.
Right.
And so it's that balance of drive quality that gets, and emissions compliance that gets really, really complicated.
It is. It really is. Guys, thank you so much. Josh Holder, Chief Engineer for Corvette. Harlan Charles, Brand Manager. Tadge Juechter, Executive Chief Engineer. Buddy, we're going to miss you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on 47 years with General Motors. Congratulations on your nomination and election into the Corvette Hall of Fame. Come back and see us.
It's been a joy. It's been a privilege. Been an honor.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening and watching Corvette Today. And be sure to tell your family, friends, and other Corvette enthusiasts about the Corvette Today show. And thanks to our sponsors, Wheelcraft. Want to dress up your Corvette with bright chrome or black chrome wheels? Visit wheelcraft.com to learn about their advanced PVD chrome finishing. They can refinish your wheels or offer a wheel exchange for most models, and it comes with a 5-year warranty. Visit wheelcraft.com today or call 833-639-4231. Soul Performance Products at SOULPP.com, the official performance exhaust of Corvette Today. Ciocca Corvette at CIOCCA-Corvette.com. True Wealth and Company at RetireWithTrue.com. Also, Aerolarri Wheels. Get $100 off your purchase with the new promo code CT111 at Aerolarri.com. And Hendrick Chevrolet in Kansas City at ChevyUSA.com.
Thanks for checking out Corvette Today on podcast and YouTube. If you'd like to contact Steve with ideas for Corvette Today, you can email him at stevegarrettdj@gmail.com. Garrett has 2 R's and 2 T's. That's stevegarrettdj@gmail.com. Also, sign up for email notifications at corvettetoday.ck.page. Follow Steve and the show on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Threads at Steve Garrett DJ. Thanks again for listening and watching Corvette Today.